Okay. So, our dear colleagues, many thanks for attending our session today. My name is Kazim. I am the academic secretary for the Sudanese Doctors Union of the in Ireland. Today we have a very interesting session and a very important and vital session, if I might add. We have our CVs to be showing how to write your CVs and how to prepare for your interviews. Hopefully, this will be something that all of you are going to enjoy and benefit from. Joining us today, we have Dr. Mohammed Hamza. He's a consultant in the emergency medicine department and critical care and retrieval medicine. He has special interest in medical education and point of care ultrasound and pre-hospital care. So he is one of our hidden gems that was difficult to find, but he is more than happy to help us. So I would like to thank you very much for giving us a little bit of your time. And I know you're preoccupied and everything, and it's a weekend, so thank you very much. On the other side, we have a dear friend of mine. His name is Mohamad Elhassan. He's a surgical SHO. He's a core surgical trainee. At the moment, he's working in the upper GI department in the Mercy Hospital. He also has a special interest in medical education and professional development. He's also very keen on helping his fellow colleagues who are even as young as they can come. As soon as you graduate, if you get in touch with this guy, he's more than happy to help you. Well, to keep things moving, thank you both very much for your time. And I know everyone's busy, everyone's running around. The CUH is crazy busy. The Mercy never stops. But anyways, the show has to go for some reason, Okay, just to have a bit of tips for everyone. I'm just going to go over a few very basic tips for everyone that you can actually benefit from, especially for those who you have general, general tips for your interviews and so on and so forth, whenever you get them. If you have the ones, for instance, if you're having an online interview, an online session, like the ones we're having today, make sure you always try a connection before you start. Make sure you have your up-to-date softwares, whether it's Zoom, inquire about your platform, make sure you have your lighting in process. Your lighting is perfect. Like, for instance, as you can see there, Dr. Hamza has his light in front of him. He doesn't have any light behind him. It's a plain, you can see like cupboards, but it's very plain behind him. That's actually a very good example of someone who's actually ready for an interview or ready to host a show. To be very frank, it looks like he's ready to host a radio show, to be very frank with you guys. But anyways, that's a professional level over there. But anyways, yes, that's about it. I can't really think of a lot, but I would revisit a few different tips and tricks and see what they have for us. So without further ado, Dr. Hamza, if you are happy enough, the mic is yours whenever you're ready. Thank you very
Right.
much.
Okay. Thank you, Kazi. And thank you all for having me. Thank you all for having me today. And I apologize for hiding for so long. Um, but yeah, so I've a it's not too long a presentation, but just some tips on how to put together a CV, and then I'll talk through some pointers and bit of advice about how to approach the interview at the end then as well. So, CV, it's a lot of effort to put together, and a lot of people might how to approach. Why does it matter? So, it's one of the most important. You will it and the importance of it, is going to stay keep it up. CV is first impression, but if you don't make a good first impression with your CV, that's the only impression you're going to make because it's what's going to open the door for you to get shortlisted for interview. So you need to really focus on making sure that it's as professional as can be and that it portrays you in the best light possible. So you need to demonstrate competence, commitment, and character throughout that CV. How do you do that? We'll talk about that in a little bit. It needs to be concise, but clear. So there's a bit of a balance you need to strike there between making sure that it's not going on too long, but also making sure you get your points across and you communicate to the person reading that CV exactly what it is you've achieved and why they need to hire you. Uh, so today, what we're going to talk about, we talk about the anatomy of a great CV, so what goes into it, how to expand your experience and flesh out that CV a little bit better, how to turn your activities, all the things that you do day to day, into good material for your CV, and common pitfalls to avoid. And like I said, we'll talk about some interview tips at the end as well. So, golden rules for putting your CV together. Clarity is king. Like I said, keep it really clear, concise but clear. So make sure that it's really easy to read. The people who are reading your CV, they're going to be really busy. They might have 20, 30 CVs to look through, depending on the post you're applying for. So you want it to catch their eye straight away. You want it to keep their attention, but also you want to be able to communicate the highlights really quickly so that they don't have to, spend too long focusing on your CV or digging through the details to kind of find out, the highlights that you want to communicate. You need to tailor it to each individual job. So this, yeah, a lot of you will have settled on the specialty you want. But even if you're applying for different jobs within that same specialty, the surgical department in the Mercy might have completely different priorities to the surgeons in St. Vincent's, for example. So, for each job you're applying for, have a look at what they are looking for in the job description, have a look at your CV, and make sure that you can line up what your CV to what they're asking for as tightly as you can. Um, Accuracy and honesty. This seems like something that should go without saying, but you'd be surprised the amount of CVs that have a lot of embellishment and some dishonesty. To be fair, some people claiming to have led on projects that, they might have had a smaller part in, or just plain making up things. It's a very small world, and even more than that, this is a very small country. You can't really get away with too much of that. So just be really accurate and to the point. Like we said already, be concise but clear. Make sure you sell yourself well. So, what goes into the CV? So here are your essential ingredients. You have to have these sections in your CV, and you might think, "Oh, I don't really have anything to go in this section." We'll talk about that in a little bit, but you almost definitely do have something to go in each of these sections. So personal details, just your name, contact details, registration number, very basic stuff. You don't need to give them, you know, too many details. Education and qualifications. That's kind of fairly self-explanatory. If you're applying for a medical job, you graduated from medicine, you include that. Any other qualifications you might have, include them there. Avoid anything that isn't relevant, because that's just it'll feel like you're filling up with things that don't really matter. So if you had done an undergraduate bachelor's degree in biomedical science, that's right. People will want to know that. So you include that. If you did a diploma in art and design, it probably won't matter to your oncology job. So don't include that. So irrelevant details in the application or in the CV kind of annoy people when they're screening the CV. So don't include anything like that. And everything should be listed in reverse chronological order. So start with the most recent thing and work your way back. Make sure you list everything. If there's any gaps, make sure that there's an explanation for that gap somewhere else, either in your cover letter or in your personal statement. But make sure that there's an explanation for that gap, because that an unexplained gap in your CV raises a red flag and will wonder why, uh, you're unable to find so they'll want to know why there was that gap. Find a good reason for it. Say you had taken time off to travel, tell them what you did on your travels. It doesn't matter what you did as long as you have an explanation for it. Publications and presentations. This is the bit where a lot of people say, I don't have enough to go in there. Think about it. You'll probably have presented something before. Even if you don't have any publications, um, you can talk about anything that you've presented or any kind of research experience you might have. And again, that can be merged with the research experience section. Um, Teaching experience. There's a lot that you can put in there. We'll talk about that again in a little bit. Courses and certifications, again, reverse chronological order. Audit and quality improvement, research experience, management and leadership. This is the bit that's barest for most people in their CVs, but we can talk about the different things you can use to flesh that out later on. Prizes and awards, not necessary, but if you've won anything, put it in there. And references. Some people say to just leave it as references on request. Don't. It's always better to have stated references in your CV at all times. So, and it looks bad if you don't have your current employer or your most recent employer as a referee. So make sure you ask them at some point, you know, do you mind being a referee on my CV in case I'm applying for something in the next while? Most of the time they'll say yes. Um, but just make sure to remind them again before you actually send your CV anywhere to tell them that they're listed as a referee on your CV. Um, okay, then formatting. Again, something that a lot of us take for granted, but you see some horrendously formatted CVs out there. So use a simple, straightforward sans serif font, Calibri or Arial, size 11 to 12. That's it. There are no other options. If I see another CV written in papyrus, I will tear my hair out. This is not your opportunity to show your creative streak. It just needs to look professional. Um, for bullet points versus paragraphs, that depends on what stage of your career you're at. I take it the most people here today are likely trainees. In that case, use bullet points. Keep everything really concise. Make it as readable as possible. Consultant CVs are different, and I'll show the difference between a trainee and a consultant CV later on. Consultant CVs are longer. They're more prosaic. It's just more paragraphs than bullet points, and you kind of flesh out and highlight details more than you would in a trainee CV. White space is your friend. If your page is too cluttered, or you're packing too many things in together to fit them into one page, it's going to look bad. So make sure that there's clear white space in your CV. Save it as a PDF. Don't send anyone a CV as a Word document, and then make sure the file name looks professional as well. It's a small thing, it's a small detail, but if it just it makes a good impression, and all the CV is about is making a good impression about you. So it's just a small, easy little thing you can do. Um, so this is the bit that I was talking about. People saying, I don't have enough on my CV. I'd say you almost definitely do. You almost definitely do have enough to put in your CV. You just need to reframe how you think about the different things that you're going to put in there. And we'll talk about the different specific things that will go into each of the different sections in a second. But you almost definitely have more than you think. But even if you don't right now, doesn't matter what stage of your career you're at, even if you just, graduated, it's September now. If you just graduated 2 months ago, and you just started your clinical journey 2 months ago, it's not too early to start and think about what can go into each of those different sections and be proactive in looking for things to fill out your CV. And it shouldn't be something meaningless. It shouldn't be just something that you're just doing just to put another line on your CV. Try and make sure that different opportunities you're chasing align with your own interests. So if you're interested in upper GI surgery, I wouldn't go doing, a load of audits and research in the neurology department if you're there as an intern, you know. Make sure that your efforts are aligned with your interests and look for the low-hanging fruit, which we'll talk about again in a second. So looking at your CV, if we have, say, for example, you have a job in mind that you want to go for next year, what can you achieve in the short term to make your CV look significantly better with just a bit of focus and a little bit of work? Personal details you can't change. That's you. There's no getting around that. Education and qualifications. So not everyone has to have a master's degree. Not everyone has to have some sort of a postgrad diploma, but you can do shorter courses to get some credentials. So CPDSS offers a good few. There's a number of short certs you can do. So a lot of the master's programs and postgraduate diploma programs, if you only want to do some of the modules, you can just get a cert for whatever it might be. So if you're interested in education and you want to explore simulation a bit more, you can do just the postgraduate cert in simulation. There's a couple of them around, but I think the one in Galway is very good. So think about those things, look at those opportunities, and see what you can pick up. Publications and presentations. There's definitely loads of opportunities there to get lots done in a very short amount of time. So even if you pick up a small audit in your department, run it through the first cycle, present it locally, get another cycle done after your intervention, and then find a national meeting to present it at. It doesn't have to necessarily be, you know, the meeting of your specialty society. Find a meeting to present it at, and there you go. You have a national presentation, and that might take only a couple of months. Teaching experience. There's loads of opportunities there, and we'll touch on that a bit more specifically in a second. Courses and certs. So again, there's lots of courses around. Make sure that your whatever relevant ALS courses for you are up to date for you. In emergency medicine, unfortunately, we have to do them all, which is expensive. So ACLS, APLS, ATLS. If you're in a trauma specialty, ETC is a new thing now, so try and get a place on ETC. It looks very good if your courses are all up to date, and some places won't hire people if their courses aren't up to date. Um, and beyond that, again, look for other courses that are, you know, useful. So I'm teaching on EGLS next week. So anyone who's in critical care who has an interest in ultrasound, that's a very good one to do and demonstrates that you're going out of your way to find courses to advance your own your own learning. Audit and quality improvement, we'll talk about a little bit more in a second, but there's always opportunities there. And that's the one where you can really kind of get multiple birds with one stone. Research experience, this depends on what you want to go into. I suppose how much emphasis you're going to put into this. It's important for everyone to be able to demonstrate some level of research experience, um, and especially if you're in. So there's some specialties like some of the surgical subspecialties, some of the medical subspecialties. You know, it might even be worth your time to take a bit of time off clinical work to go off and do some research. But for a lot of us, having some being able to demonstrate some research experience is enough, and you don't necessarily need to have a PhD. You don't need to have a list of 15 publications. You just need to be able to demonstrate that you've been involved in research in some capacity in the last number of years. Having publications is always a plus, but not always necessary. Management and leadership, we'll talk about it in a little bit. But again, that's something that you can find some really easy, quick wins in. So audit and quality improvement, like I said, low hanging fruit. You don't go in and look for the most complex, biggest piece of work you can do that'll look really impressive. That's a bad way to start because neat, a small, neat project that you can complete quickly and that you can complete more cycles of is always much, much better than a big project that'll end up inevitably incomplete. So find something quick that you can get over the line in a couple of weeks. Do the data collection as quick as you can, write up the report as quick as you can, get it presented in your department at the next opportunity. Try and get agreement on an a change implementation, and then re-audit, and then it's ready for presentation. Really easy. So you can get a nice bit of work turned around in just a matter of a couple of months. Work smart, definitely try and get your maximum return from minimum investment. So you want maximum results from minimum effort. That's the best way to kind of approach auditing QI in general. Um, Teaching. A lot of people might say, "Oh, I haven't really done any teaching." You almost definitely have. Have you done any undergraduate teaching on, on the shop floor, any clinical teaching for, students on your ward round? That all counts. Write it down. So formalize informal teaching. That informal teaching still counts. Write it down and say that you're involved in undergraduate education. Beyond that, then looking for your formal teaching opportunities, you have to go and look for them. You'll very rarely be asked to do something, but if you go and volunteer yourself to do it, then you'll find opportunities will come quite quickly. So get involved locally in your own department first, start developing your own teaching materials and deliver sessions. And, having those materials prepped is great because you can recycle the same talks multiple times, like with each new crop of students, with each new rotation of, NCHDs that come to your department. Um, for undergraduate teaching, try and find some link with the universities. If you get in touch with whoever is the specialty lead in the university for what you're working in and say, I'd like to teach some tutorials, they'll probably be delighted to have you help them with that. Examiners are always really hard to find. So if you say, I work in this specialty, I'd love to examine on undergraduate exams, people will be delighted to have you as well. Ask if you can supervise undergraduate research projects if you have an interest in that as well. So just kind of try and develop those links with the university, and that'll quickly fill out that part of your CV very, 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 very well. Talk to people involved in undergraduate societies. So, say, for example, I've done a lot of teaching with um, the Medicine Society in UCC, the Emergency Medicine Society in UCC, and in RCSI. They run a lot of activities. They're very active, and that all counts. That all counts for your CV. Put that down. If you're teaching Sim Wars teams, if you're training, you know, Sono Games teams, anything to break into that space, especially kind of at the more formalized level, like with with the universities. But if you can, if you're senior enough, I suppose, in your journey that you can volunteer yourself to help with some of the CPDSS courses. That's fantastic. That really that looks very good. But other things that you can try and do locally in your departments is try and arrange exam prep teaching for people in your department or in the hospital, or kind of volunteer yourself to coordinate the teaching rota for your department. And don't forget about MDT teaching. So if you're teaching nursing undergrads or postgrads, that also looks very good. And regardless of what specialty you're in, there's almost always an opportunity to help teaching, kind of especially the postgraduate nursing students who are getting their diploma in whatever your specialty is. Research. Like I said earlier, variable significance. You need to demonstrate some experience and seek help early. So if your research section is looking pretty bare, you don't have any publications yet, you don't have too much to talk about if someone asks you about research, because I suppose most interviews now are going to be competency based. So they'll have a list of different things that they're going to ask you about. One of those things is almost always going to be research. There's going to be depending on how big the panel is, there's going to be a university rep on the panel who will be purely focused on just your academic activity. So you need to have something to talk about there. If there's not much to talk about there, find someone senior in your department or someone senior that you're friendly with and talk to them about it early and get some advice on how to proceed. Try and find something that you're interested in and do some research in that. My thing was always education. Education research is a bit funny to do, but like that was what I was interested in. So I got a couple of educational publications out. But again, it was helpful having someone who was a bit more research savvy, sort of guide you through the first few steps of that. So that's always very, very useful. Like with the audit and QI, work smart, not hard. Whatever you start, make sure it's finished. So don't start something that isn't likely to be done in the next couple of years. Uh, but don't take on a big project as the principal and if it's not going to be finished within the next couple of years, and especially if you're going to leave the hospital you're working in. So just make sure definitely do it. A smaller role in a bigger project, totally fine. That's great. So just volunteer yourself to help with data entry, data collection, analysis, whatever it is that you can do. But just the most projects and projects that haven't been written up that are just in a research project graveyard somewhere is actually staggering. And then once it's finished, completed, written up, you don't have to wait until it's published anywhere. Just once it's finished, make sure you present it everywhere you can. You try and get a local presentation out of it, try and get a national presentation out of it. And if you can get an international presentation out of it, fantastic, even better. Just try and get as much as you can out of each piece of work that you do. Okay, so leadership and management. This is kind of the sort of vague, nebulous one that a lot of people, especially during training, won't really know too much about or won't know how to fill this out a bit more. For this, you really need to expand your extracurriculars. There's ways of putting stuff in here from your day job, but it's difficult. It's difficult to kind of translate that, especially at interview time. They'll be looking for kind of more than just what you do in the hospital. So if you're a member of NCHD or hospital committees, that counts. And that's a great opportunity and probably the easiest way to build up the leadership and management experience. If you're part of a specialty association or the trainee committee of that specialty association, that's excellent. So anyone here who's in emergency medicine, try and get involved with IAMTA. And I know there's similar trainee associations with different specialties as well. If you're managing the rota, that counts. This is probably the highest effort for the return you get though. So I probably wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't do the rota just to have something to put on your CV. It's painful. Just don't recommend it. Managing complaints again, unless you're a very senior trainee, that probably won't. You probably won't be involved in the complaints management process, but it's something to think about as you're getting more senior. You can ask your consultants if you could get involved in managing complaints get involved in the process of managing complaints, get involved in Garda reports, get involved in diagnostic reports, kind of, screening them or whatever. Again, unless you're particularly senior, you mightn't get that opportunity. And also interviews, actually, something I didn't put in here, funnily enough. But if you're, especially as senior SPRs, if there are interviews for SHOs coming to your department, you can ask to sit in on the interviews, be part of the panel. They might tell you no if there's too many people on the panel already, but that would be an excellent thing to put in your leadership and management section of your CV. Um, the personal statement should be the last thing you write. it's the first thing that comes up in your CV, but it should be the last thing you write. So make sure you have everything else down. Make sure you know your CV really well before you come to write this bit. Um, and it's the last thing you write, but it's going to be the first thing everyone's going to read, and it's going to be your first chance to make a really good first impression. So make sure it's concise, but highlighting key aspects of your CV, and use a paragraph structure for this. Don't use bullet points for your personal statement. And uh, yeah, perfect. Okay, so I might show you some examples. I have I won't spend too long showing you um, the consultant CV, but I'll show you an example of trainee CV. So this is my CV from a couple of years ago. Um, so this is my CV from a couple of years ago when I was a final year trainee. So title page, current position, career statement. So this is my personal statement, really short, half a page, paragraph format, just highlighting the things that I want people to pay attention to. Professional experience, reverse chronological order, and you see lots of white space. Everything's spaced out really well, very easy to read. There's a lot of professional experience because I'm old. Education, again, reverse chronological order, what you've achieved most recently, and then working your way back. Then exams and other qualifications, reverse chronological order, leadership and management. Here, all bullet points. So you'll notice I don't flesh out what being president of IAMTA involved. I just state it and the time that I was active in that role, which will be a notable difference in the consultant CV. So here they can see this. It's like, oh, he was president of IAMTA. That's something we can ask him at interview. Then awards, courses attended. Again, all of this very relevant for a trainee because then if I'm applying for a senior trainee role or like when I was applying for my fellowship, they'd be looking at this and it's like, okay, what courses has he done recently? What courses does he instruct on? And this is all very relevant. Whereas this doesn't feature in a consultant CV because I suppose there's when you get to that point, it's there's an assumption that there's a basic level of training that's kind of, or not a basic level of training, but a certain threshold of training that has been reached that you don't need to worry about what courses they've done. Journal publications. I'm in emergency medicine. I don't need to have too many of these. Unfortunately, if you're in nephrology or oncology or something like that, you probably need to have a lot more. Um, Presentations and talks. And again, then audit and quality improvement. Nothing is kind of fleshed out. I just say what it was when it was done. Teaching experience, nothing's fleshed out. Um, and then references on the last page. Now, very briefly, I'll show you what a consultant CV looks like. Um, so that trainee CV was 12 pages long. This consultant CV, which I put together maybe less than a year after, has 10 more pages than the other one. So there's when you get to that point, there's just a requirement for a lot more detail. Um, so personal statements a little bit longer, but again, only one A4 page, no longer than that. Personal details, education, much more slimmed down here. Just kind of highlights of everything that's happened in the last number of years. Quick blurb about the current post. Professional appointments, much shorter because people aren't interested again in what specific jobs you did as an SHO. So just your core specialist training, just sum it up very briefly in one paragraph. Then here we go. Leadership management, quality improvement experience. So I am to president was one line in the other one. You need to flesh it out a little bit more. So again, would be typically what the consultant CV would be looking for. Um, but if as you're getting to more kind of senior positions, if you're applying for a fellowship, it's probably no harm to change the CV style to something resembling this, because I suppose it's communicating that you're kind of, at a more advanced stage in your career. But that's yeah, we won't spend too long on that. That's generally what it should look like. But if anyone has more questions about that, I'm happy to take them later. So just back to this presentation. Okay, So common pitfalls about the CV: spelling or grammar errors. Do not like that is probably the cardinal sin of CV writing. If there's any spelling errors or grammatical errors in your CV, make sure you proofread it several times and then get someone else to proofread it again. Don't ever send something out for a job application with spelling errors in it. It looks really bad. Poor formatting looks really bad as well. So just kind of try and keep those formatting tips in mind when you're putting it together. Any irrelevant information, like we said earlier on, again, it comes across very amateur. It comes across, like you're just trying to fill up space because you don't have much to say. So just avoid it. It's better to have less in the CV rather than putting more in and having a lot of irrelevant information. Unexplained gaps, make sure that there's some explanation for them. And whether you have that explanation in your cover letter, in your personal statement, whether you have a little line explaining what the gap was right there, where the gap is in your professional experience, make sure there's an explanation for it. Any vague descriptions? Oh, there's a spelling error there. That looks terrible. Vague descriptions of anything you've done. Just make sure you're really specific, because if you're vague about how something happened, like say you're describing a quality improvement initiative and you say, we implemented this change or something like that, that kind of just sort of it triggers a little itch or something in the back of the person reading its mind. They're just like, well, who did that actually? Did you do that, or did someone else do it? And now you're trying to make it sound like you did it. So just make sure your descriptions of what happened and who did what and how it happened are really precise. And then not tailoring your CV to a job application. So for example, if your CV is telling me, whether from your personal statement or from your kind of the courses that you go on, that this person really likes major trauma, but you're actually applying for a job in a Model 3 hospital that doesn't see any trauma, that's kind of, the application doesn't match the job that you're applying for, if you know what I mean. So definitely try and make your CV more specific to what you're applying for. Um, okay, cover letter. So most applications for a job will ask you for a CV and the cover letter. What should a cover letter look like? One A4 page, no more. So similar to the personal statement, it should be really concise. A formal business letter format. So with your address at the top, and try and find out who you're writing to. You can say Dear Sir, Madam, but try and find a specific name. And most job descriptions will have a contact person written on them. It'll usually be the head of the department, but not always. But just find out exactly who it is that you're addressing the cover letter to. Um, if you can't find out, Dear Sir, Madam is fine, but it looks better if you know who exactly you're sending the letter to. What you need to include: tell them why it's this job that you're applying for. Why do you want this job? And show enthusiasm for it. A mistake a lot of people make is, if they're applying for a job and they want the job, but it's in a hospital that has known difficulties, don't highlight those. They know the trouble in their own hospital. You don't need to tell them about it. Just all you should be communicating is enthusiasm. And if there's if there's not much to be enthusiastic about, I suppose you can try and reframe the bad thing as a good thing. So instead of saying, this is a very poor, underdeveloped hospital, you can frame it as, this is a hospital that's at a really exciting inflection point, and there's so much potential for development, and I want to be part of that development, or something like that. Just reframe everything as a positive and show them that you're enthusiastic. Then the next bit, you need to tell them why are you the right person for this job? So tell them about your specific key strengths. So specific key strengths. You can say, I'm a very good communicator. That's fine, but back that up with something. As I showed when I led this multidisciplinary quality improvement project and I coordinated X, Y, and Z. So show specific examples that highlight your key strengths. Then show them a bit more evidence about you. after the key strengths, which are the first things you want them to think about when they think of you, tell them about all the other good things you've achieved as well. Then the fit. So why this team? Again, show them that you've done your homework about their team specifically. The hepatobiliary team in this hospital is, excellent, or the so Mohammed works in the Mercy. If the upper GI teams in the Mercy do excellent work, and give them some stats about themselves. The geriatric team in the Mercy were the first to validate the 4AT score for delirium, something like that. Show them that you know something about their department. Um, and then the close and the call to action. So thank you for this opportunity. I look forward to expanding on my strengths and achievements at interview. And then yours sincerely, and sign off. Um, then for the interview itself, so this is where we're getting to how you, when you're sitting in front of them, how you highlight and how you bring all those bits of your CV forward. And by the time you get to interview, you've done the hard work already. You have done the preparation for that interview by putting a really good CV together. So all you have to do now is make sure that you get the really important bits of your CV out in an interview. Because it doesn't matter how good your CV is, if you don't tell them about the highlights, and if you don't tell them about what's in your CV that makes you right for that job, then it's not going to count. So make a shopping list before you go in. So go through your CV, write down the 5, 10 things that you really want to make sure that you talk about in the interview, and then work them into the interview no matter what they ask you. So most interviews are competency-based interviews, like I said earlier on now. So they'll have certain things that they're going to be ticking off. So they're going to want to talk about your leadership skills. They're going to want to talk about your management experience. They're going to want to talk about your teaching. They're going to want to talk about how you deal with conflict. They're going to want to talk about your communication skills. Um, and so for each of those things on your shopping list, kind of link each of them to at least one competency. Okay. And make sure that you have all the competencies covered off so that no matter what they ask you, you can reframe the question in your head and say, okay, um, so question, for example, is tell me about a time when you led your team through a difficult situation. It's a really vague question. It sounds like they're asking you for something really, really specific, which they are in a way, but essentially what it is that's a leadership question. They want to know, they want you to tell them that you're a really good leader. So take that question, turn it on its head and say, okay, leadership, I did that QI project. I can't think of a difficult situation there, but you could say that the whole change management is a difficult process. So give them that answer then. It's like, oh, so we had to structure it using this star method, and use that for every answer that you give. So the situation was, okay, so when I was working in X hospital, there was this thing happening. Task is what you had to do. So um, we had to bring the department up to line with the latest guidelines, and so we used those as a standard and audited against that. And the result was we found X, Y, and Z, and we implemented this change. The change was difficult. It involved a lot of stakeholder engagement, but through my leadership, we did X, Y, and Z. And that's that question answered for you. So don't think about the questions too literally. Take the question they're asking, think about what competency are they looking for here, and then think about your shopping list and what example you have on your shopping list that you want to talk about. That'll make for a good answer there. And then just use the star method. That's gonna get you through all of those competency-based interview questions. Um, okay, so key takeaways. Your CV, it's a marketing document, not an autobiography. They don't want to know, they don't need to know everything about you. You need to sell them the best things about you. Um, don't obviously omit anything important, but make sure that it's structured in a way to highlight the things that you want them to pay attention to. Structure and clarity are key. So make sure it's logical. Everything's really clear and concise. Be proactive, looking for experiences to fill out your CV. Tailor the CV to the job and proofread it meticulously. Um, and thank you very much. Happy to take any questions, but good luck. You'll all do great.
Dr. Hamza, thank you very much. That was a pretty damn good presentation, if I may actually say. Okay, so I think like you're absolutely right. The problem with your CV is that like as you started, you get what, like 20, 30 CVs sometimes, and sometimes even more. It's annoying. So I think from for someone to actually look at a CV that is God knows how many pages, it's not written properly. It's in a different font that they're used to, nothing straightforward. The easiest thing for someone looking at a CV is to just flip the page and look at the next CV, and for them it's not a problem, so as you said, I cannot emphasize on the way you write your CV. Like, you can be the best at your job, you can be the best communicator in the world, you can be the best of the best, but unfortunately if your CV is not written properly, you will not get
Yeah.
shortlisted. And what you want from your CV is you just want to get shortlisted. So think of it as a ticket, as an opportunity just to show yourself well enough to get shortlisted.
Yeah.
And as you said, consultants look at what, 30, 40 CVs, sometimes a week, depending on the specialty, depending on the demand for the job, So
Mhm.
you may want to keep that in mind. Okay. If you may, Dr. Hamza, if that's okay with you, we'll just move on to Dr. Mohammed Elhassan. But before we do that, I don't have too many questions, maybe two questions on the side. Do you mind if I just run over them with you?
Yeah, I see them here. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
so
so I
can the CV exceed? Yeah, go
yeah
ahead.
yeah, so can the CV exceed 5 pages? Yes, and it absolutely should exceed 5 pages. So generally, most of the rules you find about CVs aren't for medical CVs. Medical CVs are different. It's it's a little bit annoying that they're different, which makes it hard to find good advice about what your CV should look like. So medical CVs should definitely be longer than that. So, like I said, my trainee CV was about 12 pages long. Um, when I wrote the first draft of my consultant CV and I showed it to a senior consultant colleague, at that time, the CV was 20 pages long. And she looked at it and she said, yeah, no, it's a good CV, but it could just be a bit longer. So it's almost the opposite with medical CVs. They need to be longer. Um, and I suppose if you're going to format them the way that I told you to format them and to include all the things that you need to include, they definitely need to be longer. So don't worry about them being too long. Just make sure that you have everything formatted the way that you need to kind of show off all the good things you've done well. Um, are ALS certs obtained outside of Ireland officially recognized? Yes. So most advanced life support courses that are run around the world are kind of accredited by the same bodies. So um, the ALSG accredit a lot of courses internationally. The American Heart Association accredit the majority of ACLS courses around the world. What are they called? The ATLS group. I can't remember what they're called, but they accredit all the ATLS courses around the world, so they're all identical no matter where you do them, or they mightn't be identical, but they're worth the same no matter where you do them. ETC is run all over Europe, and it's the same no matter what country you do it in. So it doesn't matter where you got your ALS cert; it's valid everywhere for as long as it's valid. So most of them are 4 years or less. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. I think we may move on to Mohammed Elhassan. Dr. Hamza, if you are available after we're done, it's fine. If you have to go, we totally understand. We know you're a busy man.
No, I'll stick
If
around. I might answer some of the questions in the chat while Mohammed's talking.
Sure, sure, that's absolutely fine. So, Mohammed, if you would mind, if you're happy to, are you ready? Can you hear me?
Yes. So let me share
Brilliant.
my screen first.
Yeah, work away. Floor is yours. Just to remind everyone, Mohammed is a Mohammed Elhassan. He's a CST working at the moment in the Mercy. Started off initially, um, worked in Drogheda, worked in Mullingar, worked in a few different places, worked in the Mater Hospital as well. So he's been around the block for a while. So he has a bit of experience for all the junior doctors as well, and pretty fresh experience. Now, I'm not calling Dr. Hamza old by any chance. He's probably old in experience, not in years. But Mohammed Hassan he went through all this process more recently, so maybe he can give us a better insight as to what we can, how can we apply for things and get our papers in line. Whenever you're ready, the floor is yours, Mohammed.
All right. Can you see the screen, Kazim, here?
Yep, and we can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Kaz. Thanks, Mohammed Hamza. That was very insightful, clear, and concise, as you used to say. So, before we start, my name is Mohammed Elhassan. I'm one of the surgical SHOs. I currently work at the Mercy University Hospital in Cork, and I'm doing my second year of core surgical training program in Ireland. So I'll be giving you guys a guide for your first HSE job interview, and we'll just try to keep it simple and concise. So there, before you go for the interview, there's 5 points that you need to go through. You need to focus on it, or you need to consider it. These 5 points will make your life easier and will make your interview very easy. You have to be very aware of the role that you're applying for, whether it's an SHO or a reg post. You need to understand the responsibilities of this role, and you need to go through the job description very well. And you need to see if there is anything in your background or in your clinical experience will line up with that job. The reason we are saying that you need to go through the job description because it's different from hospital to hospital, especially in Ireland here. According to the level of the hospital, the responsibilities change. For example, in level two, if you're applying for a gen surg rate post in a level two hospital, then during the on-call hours overnight, you're expected to cover urology, for example. You're expected to cover vascular in some places, and you're expected to cover neurosurgery. So that's why you need to be aware completely of the job description and your responsibility, and to know exactly what's expected from you in that job. You need to do your research and to do your homework about the hospital. So it's very important because it shows a genuine interest. If you went back and checked the hospital, where's the hospital location, which hospital group it's part of, what's the catchment area of this hospital. It's also important to know the size and the bed capacity. As I said earlier, any unique feature about the hospital. Is it level 4 hospital? Is it level 3 hospital? Is it a trauma center, for example? It's a center for heart transplant. Is it center for liver transplant? Is it a cardiac catheterization center, emergency center? You need to check that out because it just shows that you do have a genuine interest in the job or in the hospital you're applying for. Third is you need to review your CV very thoroughly. So I think Mohammed has covered this very well. It's just the point I want to stress on is that you need to be confidently able to discuss every item that you have added to your CV, ranging from clinical experience, audits that you've done, research, clinical placement, prizes you've won before. You need to be very comfortable with these items. It looks bad if someone asks you about some publication that you've mentioned in your CV and you've done a little work on that and you've know much information about it. Then the fourth point is to understand, to have a little bit of information about the HSE values: care, compassion, and trust and learn, and to be ready to explain how your own practice can be reflect on these values. It would be also grateful if you had a little bit of knowledge about the new projects or new HSE initiative like Sláinte Care, for example. And then professional regulation and according to the Irish Medical Council, there is a set of standards for professional conduct. You need to have a bit of idea about that. For the interview itself, as Mohammed said earlier, it covers all of the aspect. They can go through every point that you've mentioned in your CV because they screen all the CVs beforehand. The interview panel, it's usually 2 or 3 consultants and 1 HR personnel, and they cover basically your background, clinical competency. There will be 1 or 2 clinical scenarios. There'll be question about teamwork, question about communication, professionalism, and any training beforehand, courses, any academic work that you've done. So, as Mohammed said earlier, you have to go through the CV very thoroughly and make sure that you're able to discuss any point very confidently. Sample of questions and how to approach them. So there is this, as I said earlier here, there will be a question about your background. So they basically can ask you, just talk about yourself. When did you graduate? From where? What have you done so far in terms of your clinical experience, in terms of your professional development, like courses, exams, memberships, placements, teaching experience, everything. And there is also a clinical part, teamwork, communication. So I've picked up few questions that I can guarantee 100% you will be asked this question during your job interview. So you just need to be aware of how to answer this kind of question. So one of the most common and yet important question is, why did you apply for this job or this hospital? So as I said earlier, if you did your homework very well, you went and checked out that hospital, any unique feature, you'll be able to line up your answer for this question. And I would say the best way is to blend your own goal motivations and your own professional goals with the hospital unique feature and put them in one structured answer. This answer should show your enthusiasm for the job, should show that you do have a genuine interest, and should highlight your career and contribution to the job that you're applying for. Other question is, tell us about a challenging case. As Mohammed said earlier, this could be a very broad question. So you have to make your own shopping list and just make sure that you have prepared an answer for all a different kind of questions. And you should have like ready answers, and you've practiced it very well and you went through it, so you can pick which scenario you want to use. We use STAR, which technique, which is very popular: situation, task, action, and results. So I would say the best way is to get a scenario that you've already went through in your mind. You've write it down, you went through it, and to highlight all the aspects that they're looking for as you went through the job description. One of the other important question is, how do you handle workplace conflict? Again, then they don't want you to say, oh, if I'm handling a work whatever conflict, I want to stay professional. I want to seek common ground. I want to keep disagreement away from the patient. That's not the way. That's not the way to answer this kind of question. Again, you have to have a scenario in your mind, and in this scenario, you should elaborate all this aspect here, like stay to be very professional, seeking common grounds, escalate the matter when it appropriately needs to be escalated. So answers that you've already made in mind, put it down in a piece of paper, went through it multiple times, you should be able to elaborate all these aspects in it. And it's just a way to sell yourself. You want to sell yourself to them. You want to show them that you're able to do this and this and that. Other is one of the most common question as well is, what would you do if you made a mistake? We have one of the most important clinical contexts in Irish healthcare system here. It's open disclosure or duty of candor. So again, you don't have to put something a big mistake or something really bad that can reflect negatively on you, but you want to put a simple mistake that you've done before in a scenario, and then show it to them. Your scenario should elaborate that you are prioritizing patient safety first. You're again escalating the matter if it needs to be escalated. You're very transparent. You don't hide your mistakes. You've used open disclosure or duty of candor with the patient or relatives, and they should be some learning point that you can reflect on yourself. So your answer to the question, what would you do if you made a mistake? You shouldn't say, I will prioritize patient safety. I'll be very transparent. I'll use open disclosure. No, you have to have a ready scenario where your scenario will elaborate all these aspects. And again, you basically selling yourself to them. Then another aspects that needs to be looked after is you need to be very punctual, dress appropriately or professionally for your interview, keep eye contact all the time, polite speaking, be very nice. Listen carefully to the question and structure your answer. If you have a structure to answer all the questions, for example, you won't miss anything, and you'll sound more organized, show reliability and show motivation. Basically, most of the interviews are very friendly, but it's also still very schematic. And as Mohammed said earlier, it's a competency assessment. They have these points that they want to tick. They want to make sure that you're very safe, you're a reliable doctor, you always prioritize your patient safety, you know your limit. They want to know if you're a team player or not. Do you work well with the team? Do you work well with the nurses, with the physiotherapist, the occupational therapist, the clinical nurse managers? They want to know that you are professional and honest. You admit to your mistakes and you maintain integrity. They need to know if you are adaptable, if you are resilient, do you stay calm, you manage busy on calls, for example. They want to know if you are reflective, if you're teachable, if you're open to feedback. They're looking for someone who's eager to learn, someone who's knowledgeable but is still humble. They want someone who's organized, who's efficient, someone who can handle workload, someone who can prioritize jobs and document thoroughly. So basically, for every interview, you have to prepare as this is your first interview and go through the stuff again and again. After the interview, just politely thanks the panel for the great opportunity. Request feedback if you weren't successful. Use this feedback to improve future application. The Irish consultants and doctors, they're very honest people. If you send an email, if you weren't successful, for example, in any interview, you can just politely send an email, ask for feedback, and they will be very good in sending you an appropriate feedback that will help you improve in your future applications. Thank you.
To be honest, that was actually very great. See, having the two different points of views, the flip side of the coin, from a consultant's perspective and from a junior doctor's perspective. To be honest, it is very important. I think one of the things that they're really looking for here, they just want to make sure that you're keen. If you're keen on learning, if you're keen on working, if you're keen on helping other colleagues, team player, your keenness actually says a lot about you. If they get the vibe that you are keen, all the little gaps is fine. Your communication skills have to be up to date. You can't have you can't be lacking communication skills, unfortunately. This is one of the best things about the Irish systems, that they actually help people communicate and they want you to communicate. If you're in trouble, just yell help, you know? they will help you. It's very seldom when whether you're working in ED or working in surgery or working anywhere, that if you ask for help, no one's going to be there. You know? I'm stuck. I am stuck. I can't cope, or have a difficult situation, or my patient's sick, whatever, whatever be it. You know, unfortunately, that without says without going, changing calls with your colleagues and everything is always going to be a hassle anywhere and around the world. Sorry, I'm stuck. My child is sick. Sorry, I can't help you. This is an ongoing issue, but without ignoring the call rota, which is a universal thing. I think best thing about one of the best things about the Irish system is that if you're stuck and you ask for help, believe me, you'll get help. Even at a consultant level, if you are stuck, or if you're overwhelmed, or if you're only one person and you ask for help, you will get help. For surgical consultants, having a second opinion in the middle of surgery, it's fine. You know, you should, ask for a second opinion in loads of cases. So it's very vital that you show a keenness to work and a keenness to help your colleagues, whether you're keen to teach or keen to. And consultants want you to what? Either do the job, decrease the load from them as much as possible, teach your younger colleagues, and hopefully and if they get that sense of you, your chances would be high in achieving and receiving a job. I saw a few of the questions. I have master's degree. As I said, I think Dr. Hamza was very kind in answering most of the questions and even giving thumbs up for the replies. But to be honest, yes, if I would mention it, you would mention it in your interview. You don't have to mention it. You can mention as an ongoing, not in your experiences, down in a specific section on its own if you insist. But to be honest, like I would mention it in your interview. Yes, they want to know that you're keen on progressing. They want to know that you're progressing in your career on that ladder, where you're not stagnant and not moving anywhere. You know. Dr. Hamza, I don't know if you have any
Yeah,
comments for anyone.
thank you. No, that was great, and the questions are all fantastic. And Mohammed's talk reminded me of a couple of things I forgot to say as well. So the in the interview, the most important questions are going to be the very first question and the very last question. Because they always say that's what the interview panel are going to remember are the first things you say to them and the last things you say to them. And uh people don't remember what you say or what you do. They remember how you make them feel. So you need to put a lot of emphasis on really crafting a really good opening answer and a really good closing answer. And you can say, how will I know what they're going to ask me first or what they're going to ask me last? It's always the same thing. The first question is always a very general opener. It might be, tell me about yourself, or give me the highlights of your CV, or take me through your CV, or tell me about your experience so far. Doesn't matter how they phrase it. They're throwing you the ball, and your job is to take the ball and run with it. So just have an answer prepared for that. Structure it in a really good way where they know when you're moving from your clinical experience to your academic experience to your management experience to your teaching, and try and fit that in to 2.5 minutes. Usually by 3 minutes, someone might interrupt you because they want to get on to the next question that they want to ask you. But they will give you a couple of minutes to go with that question. They'll interrupt you quicker with other answers, but for that first question, they'll give you a little bit of breathing space to kind of tell them a bit more about yourself. Same with the last question they're going to ask you. They're always going to ask, have you any questions for the panel? Don't ask them any questions. It's a trap. No, just don't ask them any questions. You don't have any questions for them, but you just say, "No, I don't have any questions for the panel, but I'd just like to take this opportunity to say thank you for the opportunity to interview for this job, and I'd just like to reiterate." And you're going to leave them with the highlights that you want to mention. And if there's anything on your shopping list that you forgot to say to them, now is the time to get it out. So just make sure that the last thing they remember of you leaving, is that, oh yeah, he was really good at X, Y, and Z, and he did this, this, and this. So they're the two most important parts of the interview. So it's a marketing exercise. You're just managing their impressions, and your chances to manage the impression you leave with them is your cover letter, your CV, in the CV, your personal statement and how the CV is formatted, and then in the interview, your opening question and your closing question. They're the bits that really you need to kind of have. You need to put a lot of work in them and make sure they're really, really polished.
Right. Well said. Thank you very much, Dr. Hamza. Okay, so that's about it. Mohammed, do you have any other issues? Mohammed Elhassan, do you have any issues? Anything you'd like to add?
No, I think there's someone here, LA said, what are the red flags that can make an interviewer reject an international candidate? It's a difficult question to answer, to be honest, but
Lying. Lying
yeah,
is one of them. If they
yeah,
find out you're lying about your CV,
yeah,
we should,
exactly.
like as Dr. Hamza was saying, yeah.
If you're mentioning that you've done this and this and that in your CV and you've no clue of what you're saying in the interview, or you for example you've put a research and you've no idea what's the result were, that could be a red flag. So don't lie, don't lie, don't lie. Be very honest, even if the effort or even if the item in your CV, it's not that big. Just keep it simple, keep it quiet, and keep it clear and concise. Someone said if there is any specific guidelines that they need to know about the Irish healthcare system. There is a quite few guidelines, but you don't have to go and read the whole and document. You just have an idea of what's the guideline and what is used for example. There is a couple of few. There is open disclosure or duty of candor, and there is the National Incident Management Framework for incident report in the hospital. There is the National Clinical Guidelines, Irish National Clinical Guidelines. There is European Work Time Directive, that's for the whole Europe. So yeah, there's quite a few that you can just go and have an idea about them. Just
It'll
read.
also be it'll also be very specialty specific. So if you're looking at emergency medicine, IAM has a set of guidelines. If IAM don't have a guideline on something, your next step is the Royal College of Emergency Medicine. If the Royal College of Emergency Medicine doesn't have a guideline, NICE is the next step. So that's very specific to emergency medicine. If you're talking about anesthesia, look at the College of Anaesthetists, and if they've got any statements on anything, if they don't have a guideline or a statement on something, the AAGBI, the Association of Anaesthetists of Great Britain and Ireland, is your next step there. So each different specialty will have their own specific set of guidelines. So just find out what the standard guidelines that are used in your own specialty are.
Okay, brilliant. Okay then, Dr. Mohammed Elhassan and Dr. Hamza, thank you very much for a very lovely afternoon on a Sunday. It's honestly been very informative, refreshing, and hopefully all junior colleagues and some of our senior colleagues who attended would benefit from it. But I would like to wish everyone a very lovely afternoon, and hopefully we'll see you all soon.
Thanks, Kazim. Thanks, Mohammed. Very well. Thank you. Well done.
Thanks, Mohammed. Thanks, Dr. Hamza.